A very good evening to all our viewers and welcome to today's edition of the Evening Review. My name is Toiwanja Bella, your host. Tonight on the show we are welcoming back a guest who has featured on the show before, but that was maybe 2 years ago or so. That is Joseph Kalimbwe. He is a youth activist and a very fierce advocate for democracy, and particularly when it concerns youth matters. So we are here to talk about some of the issues affecting the youth in Africa today. Joseph, for the record, is from Zambia, but he was at the University of Namibia here, where he even served as president of the Student Representative Council. Sir, thank you for making time.
Well, it's always an honor to be here, to be able to join you and have a conversation pertaining to a myriad of issues. So I hope we're going to have a good conversation going forward tonight.
Yeah, sure. Wonderful. Yeah, so the I think there's been a lot going on in Africa, in Namibia in particular, and you've commented on some of the issues. Youth unemployment is skyrocketing in not only Namibia but in a lot of countries. But in Namibia we've seen a situation where unemployment protests were held on Independence Day here. Some people got arrested, and you were quite vocal on your social media there. What was your impression of what happened here?
Well, unemployment is an issue that affects a lot of people. You don't need to have a degree in economics to understand that unemployment affects everyone. You just need to look close in your family. You find somebody that is unemployed. And as a result of that, you find the very few people that are employed in a family have to help out with everyone. Some people are qualified, others are not. And I understand it very well because I have been in politics for quite about now 12 years. I joined the then opposition political party in Zambia, the United Party for National Development, about 12 years ago. And when the election was won in 2021, we came to realize that the issue of unemployment is quite a big issue, not just within the country's context, but on a continental level. In Namibia, you see the reasons why young people went to request to protest on the 21st of March was because of what happened at the temperature lounge, for instance, where young people went to submit applications for 100 jobs, about 2,000 young people. It happens in Zambia. There's a lot of unemployment levels. It happens in South Africa, in Botswana. Unemployment affects a whole lot of, not just young people, but the entire population of the African continent. It's issues that we must never shy away from discussing about. And I believed, and I still believe now, that the collective issues that young people are facing here are equally the same as the issues that young people are facing in Zambia or in South Africa, for instance, or in Zimbabwe. And so we must share those collective struggles. So when I saw what was happening, that young people requested to protest, and you know what followed was that there were some arrests and all that. We thought, why can we not offer our solidarity? And because I've always believed in the fact that solidarity is a message of the oppressed. We must share it collectively. So we wanted to ensure that we broadcast that and we broaden it to the entire continental level, and we make that issue become a global issue. So we had to reach out to other people on the continent, to news organizations, and speak about what was happening in Windhoek, because those issues are commonly shared.
What do you think, in your observation, is the cause of this high rates of unemployment? I mean, we talk of Africa being endowed with resources. Southern Africa, where we find ourselves, it's a pretty democratic region. There are freedoms. It's not an autocratic region. There are maybe isolated countries here where you can say the citizenry doesn't enjoy total freedoms. But I mean, it's a pretty free. There are no conflicts here, with the exception of Mozambique and other countries. But otherwise, we are good. So why can't we? What are we struggling with?
Well, there's always been this saying in an African context to say, Africa's got resources and all that. But for how long are we going to be talking about that? We'll talk about our diamonds, we talk about our gold. That conversation has been happening over and over again. There must be a clear direction in terms of the leadership qualities that we have. We have seen in so many ways that unemployment has been an issue that political parties, for instance, speak about. Political parties, whether they're in the opposition or the ruling party, whenever there's an election, there's always that conversation to say we're going to create jobs, we're going to do this and that. But after an election has won, the conversation then turns. Young people are being told to create their own jobs by somebody that has been employed by the government for the past 30 years. Yeah. Then it's not the issue that young people request for jobs. They do look at the manifesto. When we are campaigning in the political parties, we speak about creating jobs. We speak about trying to help ensure that the public gets confidence, ensure that the investors can come and invest and help create jobs. But when the election has been won, when people are in power, now the conversation changes to say young people must be able to create their own jobs, they must enter into entrepreneurship. And when young people question about employment issues, it becomes a whole political scenario. And so I do believe in the fact that we must go beyond the rhetoric of talking about the resources that we have. It's now the time for us to provide the leadership of how we can make sure that the private sector has got a conducive environment for people to enter into business, and those businesses can create jobs. We saw what happened just, I think, about a few weeks ago. There's a documentary that was released about the gold mafia. Before then, there was a documentary that was released here about the fish rot. That tells you the extent to which resources we have on the continent. The resources are there, but the leadership to be able to care about the masses of our people, the townships, in the compounds, is not there. The political will to ensure that we create employment to help the masses of our people succeed is not there. So the moment that we fix the political leadership, then we can be able to achieve and reduce the levels of unemployment which are affecting the rest of us.
Yeah. What are the dangers of this consistent and persistent unemployment? Because the president of our country remarked at his recent State of the Nation address that if we do not arrest this, we do not contain this situation, young people in Namibia could become mercenaries who could join terrorist organizations for survival. I don't know why he picked that particular example. There are many other things that he could say, but I respect his opinion. Are those some of the, I mean, for how long can, what can manifest into, what can this situation manifest into if it's not addressed?
Well, he was right to say that. We have seen instances in Mozambique, for instance. There's a province there called the Gabo province, which has been ravaged by, terrorist organizations, killing innocent men, young and women. So we have seen that as a result of that, young people are being recruited into that. At the moment, within the African and the SADC context, we must never shy away from having conversation to say, Namibia, for instance, Namibia is the second most stable judiciary on the African continent. That is one plus that people don't speak about. It's quite democratic as compared to other nations. If you look at Zambia, for instance, there's been now democratic reforms because we have a leader from our party that understands the struggles of our people. And before then, there are other nations who are just having a conversation between you and I. People can storm in. Political party members can storm in and disrupt what is happening. In terms of what the president was saying, to say the issues of unemployment, if not solved, can lead to young people joining, that is very true. You foresee that future where young people don't have anything to do. That's why you find that early in the morning you see young people in taverns, they're drinking alcohol. It's not their fault. But the problem that we also have is that when other young people get into positions of leadership, they don't tend to speak about the issues that affect their own generation, the issues of unemployment. Therefore, those that are unemployed, they are looked at as lazy, like they are not lazy, they don't work hard enough to be able to look for opportunities for themselves. That is a political space that we must also try to neutralize. We must ensure that young people can continue to speak, whether those young people in the ruling party, in the opposition, or they are youth activists, or they are advocates. We must have a constant engagement to ensure that the issues of young people are addressed, and not just the issues of young people, other people as well. There are some that are qualified but are unemployed. And so I've always believed in the fact that the monopoly of wisdom is not held by anybody else. We must share ideas and understand how we can be able to move forward.
Yeah. Do you think there's a silent but simmering generational conflicts? Because we have young people that are now in the political space. Some of them are in parliament, especially here in our country. I think for the first time in many, many years, we have a number of them in parliament, but they're in a very, very overwhelming minority. So much that their voice, if you have 3 or 4 people that are under 30 in a parliament of 104 people, like we do here, that is not really sufficient. That voice is not enough. Do you think that there's a situation where each generation is protecting its own interest, because the elders obviously want to maintain their survival also, and that they have built a firewall around themselves that protects them from, that insulates them, if you like, from some of this accountability?
Well, like I said, I don't believe there's anybody that holds the monopoly of wisdom, both young and old. You can tap wisdom into a young person. You can tap wisdom from an older person. And so there must be that common consensus where we come together to say, young people, the interests of young people, because they are the majority. Namibia will go to elections next year. We have Zimbabwe going to the elections this year. Zambia had its election 2 years ago. And so in all those elections across the entire African continent, young people play an important role in who becomes president and who doesn't, because they're the majority. They're the ones who go to vote. They're the ones who are mostly used to mobilize for votes by political parties. But in many instances, when it comes to the actual leadership positions, a very few number of them get to be elected into positions of leadership, or even political party structures. How do we ensure that we bring in young people? And I've always said that young people must be everywhere, but join the political leadership, understand what is happening, because it is from there where you can be, identified into a position of leadership. People can say maybe it's got potential to be able to address certain issues. And once we have a huge number of young people into those positions of leadership, I do believe we can have common consensus with the old to say, look, we have a huge number of young people that are unemployed. Can we be able to look into this? There was a debate that was being tabled in the Namibian parliament the other time, and even in the Zambian parliament, there was a debate of, rape cases. And we saw one of the members of parliament saying, a woman cannot be raped by her husband. And so those are conversations that we must have. It has to do with consent. But from a young person's point of view and from an older person's point of view, a lot of them still believe in those traditional ways. But we are now in a digital world. We are 23 years into a new century. We must be able to discuss the way the world is moving forward and be able to move with it, going forward as a people, as young people, as older people, and address the issues that affect us all.
Absolutely. We go for a quick break and then return with Joseph Kalimbwe.
NMH at 1 brings you news from all corners of Namibia. NMH at 1 aims to reach viewers countrywide who are interested in current affairs in a short and sweet format. This show is broadcasted on NTV, 1up2.com, and cross-shared on the following Facebook platforms: The Republican, Algemeine Zeitung, Namibian Sun, Namibia Media Holdings, Irongo, and Vindic Express. To share your news or advertise on this platform, contact nmh1@synergy.com.na. NMH at 1, your lunchtime news companion.
The show continues. Joseph, this, when young people demand more of their rights, they demand more accountability from their leaders, there's always a fight back. When you're outspoken, you are perceived in particular ways, that you're unruly, that you're not submissive to the elders enough. You had a situation recently, well-publicized situation in Zambia, where you were sort of arrested and where there were a lot of accusations, you are impersonating people and whatnot.
Yeah.
What can you tell us about that?
Well, it was a very unfortunate situation. I have always believed in the fact that we must address issues the way they are. Unfortunately, I do speak about issues not just beyond Zambia, but across the continent. What happened was unfortunate in that it led to me being put in police cells for 2 nights. And I was my phone was being searched to say, why are you talking to individuals like Nelson Chamisa, for instance, like Julius Malema, whom I don't talk to. I'll never deny the fact that Nelson Chamisa is my friend from Zimbabwe. And so there were issues of, I met 2 people at a certain hotel, and then 3 more people came, and they're asking me questions. What did you go to do in Malawi? What did you go to do in Namibia? Were you having conversations about this? And I felt very uncomfortable. And then after that, I was being told that we must go to the police station. And they took my phone, searching who I'm talking to, what conversation I'm having with Chamisa, for instance, people in the CCC in Tanzania. Yeah. And I said, look, guys, I've always traveled. I've had conversations, and I've never traveled outside the country in the name of the party. I've always had those conversations. Beyond that, we have traveled and had conversations with young people. Yeah. And so when they put me in cells, I was charged with disturbing peace, conduct to disturb peace. And then I slept there, and then the next day, the news broke, because they put on social media to say I'm impersonating somebody, which was completely untrue. I've never impersonated somebody, and I never will. I've always built my name from the very start, from the University of Namibia all the way we went to mobilize to ensure that we carry out a social mobilization team to put in a new leadership, the president, whom I've always believed in and whom I believe in up to this date, because he's helped our country move forward. And so when I was told about what was being posted on social media, I was a little bit hurt, because I put in my very best to ensure that our party gets into power, and then to say I'm impersonating and I'm collecting money door to door from people. That did hurt me. You sit down sometimes and you try to look into those things. I have, my name was quite grown over the past few years, and I've spoken about a lot of issues. Yeah. I've always worked my way up, and so when I read that, because I didn't read it myself, somebody came to tell me. So when they saw that I was put in cells for disturbing peace, and they told me that on social media there's something that has been posted, but I felt bad about that, to say I'm impersonating somebody and I'm making door-to-door collection of money from people to go to other countries. And I think there was a part where they were saying I went to Zimbabwe to mobilize young people. I felt very bad about that. But I've come to realize that that is politics. There's always people that would want to tarnish somebody's name. Yeah. I've worked my way up for so many years, and it made me feel bad, particularly with the work that I put in to help our leadership get into positions of influence, into power, and to be paid back like that. It did hurt me.
Yeah. Who do you think was behind that? Is it your competitors in the party? Is it the leadership that you helped put in power in your own way, in your own small way, or who are the primary suspects?
Well, we had conversations. When I went to that hotel, I had met our National Youth chairperson, and then also there was somebody from State House that came there, and then they were asking me questions to say, maybe the things that you say on social media putting us in a different situation as a country. And after that, what followed was what I found very disturbing, because there were a lot of accusations against me, things that I've never done and I will never do. To say I've collected money door to door from people, to say I've impersonated somebody. I felt a lot more bad. I looked back at all the work that we've put in ensuring that leadership gets into positions of influence. Yeah. I support the president. He's a noble man that is at the State House trying to lead our country move forward. But in the midst of that, there's always been some internal issues where people try to see this person as different from the other one and all that. But I'll never shy away from continuing to advocate for the fact that our president is doing the right job, in spite of those internal issues where people come and try to destroy me from inwards. I've always advocated for the fact that Zambia still has a place to accommodate my dreams, whether those dreams are political or otherwise. And I'm a forgiving person. In spite of that, I felt bad in that moment because I've never done any of the things that they accused me of. And I put it aside, knowing that our country still has a place to accommodate our dreams, and whenever we achieve that which we seek to achieve, I'm not a vengeful person. I'm not going to have learned that from our president. In spite of the many years that he was arrested, he never went back to pursue bad things about those that wanted to destroy him.
You see, your party is coming from the opposition side of the divide, and what we have known in Southern African politics is that there's always this solidarity between either opposition parties or ruling parties and former liberation movements. And you know, in your case, we know what is happening in Zimbabwe. And if you are a firm believer, you and Chamisa, for example, have been in the opposition together for those years prior to your party becoming a ruling party. So it's not something that just came up now. So that solidarity dates back to some time. And were you supposed to now break off this relationship and this solidarity because we are now ruling and the opposition somehow? What is the expectation of people?
Well, perhaps my takeaway from that was that perhaps maybe now that an election has been won, there's a difference between the opposition and the ruling party. Perhaps maybe I was a little bit undiplomatic in the way I addressed issues, but I'll never be a person that will distance myself from my friends. Nelson Chamisa, the comrades from Tanzania, the comrades here in South Africa, those are our friends. We saw previously when Kenneth Kaunda was president of Zambia, he fought to ensure that Walvis Bay was never taken away from Namibia against apartheid South Africa. He was fighting to ensure that Southwest Africa went, Namibia got into positions of influence. Sam Nujoma went to live alongside Tate Pohamba. They were living in Lusaka. Some of them were speaking Zambian languages. That is a type of leadership that was exemplified by President Kaunda. Now that we're in this position, there were Zambians that were telling him to say, look, can you leave these people, let them go and fight their own things. But he stood firm. They formed the frontline states to ensure that South Africa, then Upper South Africa was fought against. And so that is what I believed in. That is what I still believe in. To say we can have a leadership within the continent where we speak honestly and frankly about the issues that we face. And that as countries, we must only extend our hand of friendship to those who respect the basic human rights of their people. And so I'll continue to be friends with people like Nelson Chamisa, with people from other nations. We'll continue to have conversations because I do believe in their struggles. We've been through that struggle before. And whether people think it is undiplomatic to do it, that is not my place to do that. Just yesterday, we saw that there was a television station in Ghana called Joy's TV, where they were saying I'm a little bit xenophobic in things that I'm doing because I posted about on social media about an issue of the Congolese attacking people on the Zambian border. But there's always been this narrative in African journalism where some people want to paint me black in some way. So I saw that clip from Joy's TV in Ghana last night, and I was a little bit disturbed because we are just trying to paint a narrative of saying young people can play an important role on an African political stage and be able to achieve and deliver their nation safely to the next generation of leaders. And so whenever those things happen, we'll continue to support the leadership, whether those are in the opposition or not, so long as they've got better ideas to move our people forward.
Are you shaken, Joseph, by this series of events now, having been kept in police custody for 2 nights, having these smear campaigns, if you like, coming from as far as Ghana, very, very far West Africa, but somehow your name is known there. Are we going to see a difference in the character of Joseph Kalimbwe, or you are going to continue to speak truth to power and be in solidarity with those that need Africa at the moment?
Well, I learned from our president that sometimes you don't need to respond to everything that is thrown at you. He's been through so many things. Arrested 15 times. I was in cells just for 2 nights. He's been in and out for 15 times, and I learned from him that there are so many things that we can be able to achieve. Our country has had 5 presidents. We now have 7. Namibia has had 3 presidents. And throughout those years, when I saw the clip from, is it Joyce TV from Ghana where they're saying I'm xenophobic, I felt it was unfortunate. When I saw the smear campaigns that were happening that led to me being put in cells for 2 nights, you know, I come to realize that, you know, sometimes people fight to try to break somebody's spirit, but we must continue to say this is the political space that we want to achieve, and we must be in politics to ensure that our people achieve the best outcomes out of everything that is being done. And that is why I went out to mobilize for our president, because I believe that we can have a right man at the State House, and that a new generation of leaders can rise, whether that new generation is in Namibia or in Zambia or in South Africa. We can shape them to ensure that they become the next generation of presidents, and we must play that role in spite of this back and forth of smear campaigns coming from left and right.
Wonderful. Joseph, thank you for your time. I appreciate your presence here.
It's always an honor to be here. You know, Namibia is my second home. I always feel good to be here and understand things. I'm a product of Namibian education, and so I feel good to be here.
Wonderful. Thank you. That was Joseph Kalimbwe. He is a youth activist and advocate for democracy, and he is in the country from Zambia, speaking, of course, on the show tonight in his own private capacity. Thank you for watching.
Thank you.